Hello and welcome to Allshorts here in France. And I hope you're all having a lovely day in the UK. I know not if you're sitting in, a queue or waiting in a coach for 14 odd hours just to get through passport control at Dover. I know that ain't much fun. But that's not what this video is about. I talk about inflation. Inflationary pressures. Not these pressures. No, inflationary pressures. Well, in the EU, our inflation has rapidly dropped to 6.9%. So how come in the UK it's at, 10.4%? I wonder. Well, the politicians will tell us all. They'll point the finger at the EU. Whether it be France, Germany, the growth is terrible, they say. Terrible growth. Is it me, or is it the case if you say a lie enough times it becomes the truth? Or in the minds of the little people with little brains, yeah. Not all the little people, because some little people got big brains. But I mean the little people with little brains, who quite frankly, they don't want to listen to logic. No. No common sense, because common sense is no longer common, unfortunately. So yes, these politicians, the likes of Lee Anderson and all his ilk, and including our fraudulent Prime Minister, allegedly, Richie Sunak. They all like to say how bad it is in the EU. Oh, the growth, no growth. Because we got out, because the growth is terrible. There's no growth. So where's the growth in the United Kingdom? The worst performing of the major economies in the G7. We're falling behind Russia. The stuff is not quite right there. And yet they'll still point the finger at the EU. You really can't make this poop up. No. And like I say, Eurozone inflation has fallen sharply to 6.9%. And this is in the Financial Times. And that's not propaganda. No. I like the Financial Times because they talk logic. And I like logic. But numbers. And numbers is good. Numbers don't lie. Unless you fabricate them, of course. So the Eurozone inflation has fallen sharply to 6.9% as energy costs recede. Energy costs recede. Well, for us in the EU, we were very fortunate that Emmanuel Macron, in his wisdom, he must have a big brain. Not about pensions, by the way, but he has on energy. Because he decided that was a very good idea for the country to buy the rest of the remaining shares, half the value, basically, of EDF, which kept the price of energy down. Electricity, that is. That's nuclear generated. And it's worked. Our energy costs, such as electricity, has been held down to 4% inflation, 4% increase. Whereas in the United Kingdom, it's 400%. And the only reason why you're paying what you're paying now, even though it's still a lot of money, is because it's capped still. And that can be removed at any time. Yeah. But like anything, it's not really a handout. It's not a handout when you've got to pay it back, is it? It's a loan. It's just getting added to your national debt. And when Jeremy Hunt says, there's more room in the economy, he doesn't mean to say there's more money coming in, so we've got more money to spend. No, it just means there's more available to borrow. This is madness. You can't borrow your way out of this problem. No. The austerity next. We've already done that. We tried that. Didn't work. No, you have to invest. You have to invest in your infrastructure. But this government doesn't seem to get that or see that. Over the years, all they've done is dwindled our infrastructure, such as the sewage works, that can't cope. Or is it the fact that we sold them all off and there's some greedy CEOs that want to profiteer? During the pandemic, we spent a crazy amount of money, £37 billion on something that didn't work. Managed to only send out one notification for COVID. The app. Ask Dido Hardon. She knows. This is madness, and people are allowing it to go on. The fraud that's going on in the United Kingdom and the I know I have to say alleged, but it's plain as the eye can see. There's no value for money. The app that we were using here for the COVID vaccine, not COVID vaccine, but also notifications if you've been near somebody who's got COVID. Well, it costs €1 billion euros for the entire EU. That includes all the servers and all that sort of stuff. And it worked. Worked very efficiently, including the putting the vaccines onto your phones and stuff, onto the app. It notifies you and stuff. It works. It was flawless. I have to admit, I thought it was actually a really clean app. I was very impressed. So the UK couldn't even get that right for £37 billion. We still don't know where that money's gone. Where is the inquiry regarding that? People have got questions they want to ask. Where is my money? I'll tell you where your money is. It's been moved into the pockets of others and been paid by you for decades to come. The cost of the UK's COVID response is more than any other country. I don't know about the United States, but especially in Europe. This is madness. And yet we let it carry on. As citizens, we allow it to go on. Richie Sunak. He's the biggest crook of the lot. But we let it go on. Just like they did with Donald Trump. Everyone knew he was a crook. But they still voted for him. They thought, that'll be new. Yeah, that'll be fun. Huh, let's have a Donald Trump. We thought that was great with, well, I didn't, but people thought it was great with Alexander Boris the Pfeffel Johnson. Let's get him in, it'll be good. Yeah, and his fluffy hair. We got his human. Didn't work out, did it? No. They decided that wasn't such a good idea and we better get rid of him. It's always a bad sign when they want to make blimps out of you and float you over London. I reckon that was Donald Trump's downfall, that was. Put a pin in him. So, yes, the Eurozone has, inflation has fallen. The UK is over 10% still. Yet the MPs will say otherwise. But it's not as simple as that. Our core inflation here in the EU has actually gone up a little bit, which is a little bit concerning. But that might settle down. Now, we're talking about food inflation, really. Because people are starving. Now, it's all very well for the likes of Lee Anderson to say, 30 pence meals for everybody. You can make a healthy meal, gruel more like it, for 30 pence according to him. Hence he got the nickname 30p Lee. These people are awful. Now I do admit though, there is a lot of people who either they just don't know how to cook, and not necessarily because of their own doings, because times have changed. I can remember growing up with my parents, what have you. My mum used to cook, what have you. My sisters used to cook, but Dad never really cooked, although he could cook. And but now it's become more of a rarity. And I can remember growing up, they started getting the ready meals and takeaways and all that sort of stuff was becoming the norm to my generation. But before that, it wasn't. Well, no, you go to the chip bee, and that was about it. That was your local takeaway. There wasn't the so much of the Chinese and, well, maybe there was Chinese and China and Indian restaurants and what have you, but it wasn't like it is now. They're everywhere, aren't they? And obviously the kebab. Oh God, it's a doner kebab now. Anyway, dreamy thought. So Eurozone inflation has fallen more steeply than expected to its lowest level for a year after a decline in energy costs. But economists have warned an acceleration in the rate of price increases for food and services was likely to worry the region's rate setters. Obviously, it's in the EU, but we've got the same problem in the UK. Food inflation in the UK is around 16 to 17%. So it's not just the inflation when you buy stuff, other than food, But food in the UK is cheap. I'm the first to admit it. In relationship to what we pay here in the EU, France especially. I'll say the EU, I'll say France. France, the cost of food here in France, if anyone's been over to France, you'll know, especially at the moment, the cost of food is, it's expensive. It's become expensive. Now, before the war in Ukraine, or earlier last year, I would say even up to summertime, we were paying around 110. If we want the cheapest eggs you can get, we were 110. Those same eggs now, they went up to 2.15, €2.15, and they come back down now to about 160. So they're still quite expensive. And then everything has gone up. Cheese, milk products, you name it, everything's more expensive. Milk is more expensive. So it has increased considerably here. Now, you might have done a few pennies here, but when you put like 10, 20, 30, 40 items in your trolley, well, then all of a sudden it amounts to quite a lot of money, and you end up, you find out you spent an extra 20 to 30% more on your food. You do that every single week, it gets to be quite a bit of dough. So it becomes more expensive, and those who can't afford it end up going without. Now, me and the missus, we're just the same in the sense that when we go and look at the cheese, oh God, that's flipping expensive. What, €28 a kilo? No, I'm not paying that. And then you just don't buy any. You move on. Because you think, well, I can't afford it and I can't warrant it. So it's quite handy that I've stopped drinking, actually, to be honest. So that's actually saved quite a bit of money. So yeah, consumer prices in the euro area has risen by 6.9% in the year to March, consumer prices in the euro area rose 6.9% in the year to March, down from 8.5% from the previous month, to reach their lowest level since February 2022. So the drop was sharper than forecast, with the stock markets rising on the back of the publication of the inflation figure by Eurostat. Then the EU Statistics Agency, I suppose a bit like the OBR or something. So, however, core inflation, this is the thing we've got to worry about a little bit, is core inflation has actually gone up, so which excludes energy and food costs to give a better view of underlying price measures. They hit a new Eurozone high of 5.7% in March, up from 5.6% the previous month. The food price inflation also rose from 15% to 15.4%. The services inflation was up from 4.8% to 5%. Well, all these increases in costs means you just don't get the stuff done. Just like me saying, well, we're not buying this in the supermarkets, it's the same as services. Yeah, maybe we won't have that done. Or maybe we'll have our will written or something, I don't know. Could be anything. Because it's all become more expensive. And obviously that gets hit with energy costs and stuff. Luckily they've come down a bit. But everything is a knock-on effect. And if you've been hit in other areas, there's other things you were spending money on, but that's now too expensive. And you can't get away from it. Like, for instance, heating your home or something like that. Energy, for instance. Well, then you're going to save money elsewhere. Because, rob Peter, pay Paul. The analysts have thought that the high core figure would lead to further increase in borrowing costs by the European Central Bank, which targets inflation of around 2%. Yeah. Well, we ain't got that at the moment. No. That's our target inflation. And it's the same in the United Kingdom. But the United Kingdom's 10.4 at the moment. That's, it's quite considerable. So looking here, on this little graph I've got here, this is in the Financial Times. So Eurozone HICP at the moment is over 6.7%, and the core inflation has actually gone up. It's going up, which is a bit of a worry. And that ain't so good. So they're kind of meeting in the middle. They could be the same at some point. They're going to cross over. Don't cross the streams, no. So the potential for core inflation to remain stickier than hoped will be the main reason for the European Central Bank to continue to hike rates. Yeah. Which then will have even more curve. Everything become even more expensive, especially if you've got mortgages, what have you. And if mortgages go up, everything goes up. Now, in an air term, said Bert Collins. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I don't know. I really do apologise. Well, an economist at the Dutch bank, ING, predicting two further point rate rises by the European Central Bank in May and June. Now, the European stock markets, which had been flat on Friday, rose on the Eurozone inflation data, and the region-wide stock 600 and the Germany's DAX indexes, I can't even say that now, indices, both climbed 0.4%, while France's CAC 40 was up by 0.5%, and euro weakened to 0.2% against the dollar. Yeah. Never mind about the pound. That was buggered ever since 2016. Well, that's my little bit of a waffle there about inflation. So yeah, it's looking better here in the EU, but it does frustrate me that the UK does like to point the finger, and we're doing all right over here. You know, considering everything, especially. And you got to remember where we were getting a lot of our gas from. It was all coming from Russia because it's the same landmass. You know, it's obvious, really, wasn't it? And we've had to look at further afield, and a lot of the, well, LPG and what have you is coming from the United States and places like that. You know, the UK's been suffering with that as well, haven't they? You know, even though they've got their own gas, they don't have the gas storage. They effectively, the United Kingdom, via the end connectors, were using the European Union as a bit like a bank. We will put our gas over there, and we'll take it back whenever we need it. But when there's no surplus, it can't cope with it. No. So what did we do? It was a bit unfortunate that we've been decommissioning the gas storage units in the United Kingdom, which we've been doing for some while now. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it really? So while everything is working, it works. But when you have a state of war, what happens? Where would the United Kingdom be if we had a situation of another war, which we're getting scarily close to? And it's a bit, yeah, where would we be? We've become too interconnected with the world in that sense regarding security. And energy security has to be, well, take front of house at the moment, doesn't it, really? So we can actually sustain our lifestyle. But also we need to be looking at that as well, because we clearly waste too much. This morning I was listening to the radio on LBC, and I can't remember his name. He's the ex-tennis player. He's on LBC, and he's going on about China. So we're only a tiny part of the environmental impact. But we buy that shit. It's us in the West. We're the ones buying. We're the ones fueling. We're the one putting the money in China's pockets. We keep buying the crap. Buying all the shit we don't need. I'm a culprit. We all are. We all buy the stuff we don't need. We buy things on a whim. Oh, that's a good idea. Even if we couldn't afford it. That's where the inflation and the cost of living being much higher now is a good thing in some ways, because you buy less crap. So it's better for the environment. It's a bit like what happened during the pandemic. Nobody was travelling anywhere. The skies were clear of chemtrails. All these chemtrails. Oh my God, I can fry your brains. Yeah, all these chemtrails. Well, I have to admit, where we are in France, I'm not far from Limoges Airport, and the sky was clear. There was no aeroplanes, there was no chemtrails. And, yeah, the skies were clear. So we were forced into a situation where we didn't damage the environment. Less fuel was being burnt by these aeroplanes, making journeys that maybe we didn't really need to take. I suppose it's about responsibility, really. We need to be more responsible for our actions. Anyway, I've gone a bit off track, I must say. And it's made the video long, 18 odd minutes long. So I suppose I better go, really. Might do another waffle later. Anyway, if you're most kind, don't forget to maybe boop the old like button. So it does help the channel, you know. And I'll leave a link in the description down below for this article in the Times. It's probably behind a paywall. So I do apologise for that. But the Financial Times is one of the better papers, and it's in my mind it's quite neutral, which is good. Which is good. Just want the information. I can make it biased. I can do that on my own. I don't need their help. Anyway, thanks for watching. And I know it was a bit of a waffle, but hey, c'est la vie. Well, if you want to support the channel, you can do that on Patreon or buy us a coffee, and it is very much appreciated. And we're also planting trees. We're planting 1,000 trees on 2 hectares of land here in France. So if you want to offset some of your carbon, you can do it here if you want. Yeah, and we'll put you a sign with that tree with your name on it, or it could be in memory of somebody if you like. Anyway, the link's down below in the description. So I'll say ta-ta, you know, say ta-ta.